Hello, Charlie TCG here, and welcome to another deck profile. Today, let's look at Gardevoir Mewtwo. It had a really good success over in Taiwan just this past weekend, and I thought we should cover this really impressive, really good comeback style mechanic, which Gardevoir is really thriving on. So what exactly is it doing in Japan? Right now in the City League, Gardevoir, this version of Gardevoir is probably about 5%. Very, very low on the end of what the Gardevoirs really are, but it's really, really powerful with the amount of huge setup it can have to offer because of how versatile Gardevoir EX truly is. In the larger tournaments, it kind of rose to fame from the Japanese Championships all the way back at the start of this month over in Japan by sealing it in top 16 place. And just this past weekend, it did get second in Taiwan, which is really good to see how Gardevoir is evolving, have Mewtwo as a really good sort of attacking and amazing comeback mechanics due to having the powerful reversal energy. It's amazing using the comeback mechanics in the deck and hitting multiple weaknesses with its multiple different range of attackers. So let's just jump into see what the deck profile looks like. So here you can see here, it's a very interesting Gardevoir list from what we're used to. We play the Mewtwo V Union with its amazing acceleration, healing, not being able to affect it by attacks, and also the spread amount of damage by putting 16 damage counters anywhere. This is perfectly a huge amount of way to kind of go around these Lost Box decks and help you in the mirror match by placing as many damage counters in as possible. The rest of it is a very sort of straightforward looking at Gardevoir. We play a 3-1 split of the Rolts, 3-1 split of the Curlier, and we play one Gardevoir EX, 2 of the Gardevoir Shine Arcana, and 1 of each of the Galets, which are in the format. I really like this sort of split, and this is exactly the second place list, which I showcased yesterday. The Rolts having the memory skip is really good because you want to stop those sort of attacks like Alolan Vulpix from attacking into you and potentially warning you from a couple of the winning games. And having the Mirage Up Curlier, as you might be going a little bit slow by only having one Gardevoir EX, you can afford these sort of turns to really have a bit slower to get as many Curliers out as possible. Only having one Gardevoir EX is very sort of standard for these sort of decks. This isn't a Gardevoir EX focused deck, and you're not playing a load of energies, and you have reversal energies as another sort of attacking energy types on this format. You don't really want to rely too much on Psychic Embrace, but it's a really good effect to have, especially to set up your Mewtwo V Union very, very quickly. Having the 2 Shine Arcana, this is kind of your big KO attacker, the one that's always going to get the big KOs on the VMAXs or the V-Stars around there. It has an amazing ability by able to attach some energies if you see them by looking at the top 2 cards, and the amazing attack which has 60 more, plus 30 more for each energy you have attached to Gardevoir. With reversal energy, if you're behind in prizes, you can immediately accelerate that, having 90 more damage, which is really, really good. The Buddy Catch Galade is really good, especially from its attack, as well as the ability to get any of the supporters you might need. This could be really handy if you need to get Peona to guarantee that Mewtwo piece, or potentially that Boss's Order or Iona to redisrupt your opponent. The other Galade is really good because it can help you in sort of a deck like Arceus, that variants, which are really starting to rise up, as well as, of course, Miraidon. Having that immediately hit for weakness, as well as potentially doing a lot of damage, 60 times the amount of V-Poke when you have opponents has some play, is really, really handy. It also plays the Luxray, which I love. This is one of my favorite cards from the new set. This Luxray, which has a really good ability where if you're behind in prizes, you can immediately place it down on the bench. Really, really powerful with an attack, which just one reversal energy could do 180 damage. This immediately can KO quite a few of this every single prizer, as well as the Lugias, so you don't need to worry too much about the maths on there. And as we have quite a very vulnerable bench by having quite low HP, having double mana fee is really good, and 1 copy of Gradient Greninja is amazing to get that draw impact, as well as putting the amount of energy in the discard pile with Gardevoir. The rest of the item cards are pretty standard. We play Rescue Carrier and Super Rod. It's finally back, so it's a really good way to Rescue Carrier to guarantee get any of the Curlier line pretty easily on, and Super Rod can immediately, we can reuse cards like, for example, the Gardevoir or Luxray or potentially Galade, so you can utilize those of these attacking options for later in the game and search them out through any of the cards you might have, like Ultra Ball. 2 copies of Rare Candy. Even though we play quite a low count of Rare Candy, from very much we're playing 4 copies of a Stage 2 Pokemon, having this Rare Candy makes you accelerate immediately into getting your Gardevoirs out. Because you're worn a bit slower and you're using these other attackers, you kind of want to evolve into it, kind of fall behind, so you can utilize these pure strengths of Iona, Luxray, and Reversal Energy. This is all about comeback mechanics, just like I talked about last week, so I really like seeing that it's a whole deck built around the comeback mechanic. 1 copy of Power Pad is really good just to utilize any of the supporters you might have, and 4 copies of Lovable and 4 copies of Ultra Ball. Lovable gets you from Curlier down below, as well as having the Mana Fee option. You always want to have the Mana Fees out purely because of how strong Radiant Greninja is in the format, and Ultra Ball, you're able to discarding any of the Psychic Energies, as well as your Mewtwo Reunion pieces, which is really, really powerful, and to get any of your attacking option. Supporter line, I've already mentioned a few. We do play one copy of Pioneer. Pioneer allows us to have a look at 3 of our prize cards and put them down in any order, just to see if we've got any of those pesky Mewtwo v Union pieces, which are hiding there, which we need to use for our attackers. One copy of Worker, because even though we're not reliant too much on Psychic Embrace, but only having one copy of it, you don't really want to get ability locks in there. So that's always good to have a copy of that. Be disruptive for your opponent, as well as drawing a few cards. I mentioned a few of these other ones below. We do play 2 copies of Boss's Orders and 3 copies of Iona. Boss's Orders is really good, kind of even though we're attacking quite a few of the bench through Mewtwo v Union, Boss's Orders can potentially get us that game-winning condition we might need at the end of the game. It's good to have a couple copies. And Iona, as we're going to potentially go 1 to 2 prizes already down, and that's kind of how a set kind of strategies around it, it's good to play a high count of it to really disrupt the opponent, and you could have this really good late game mechanics, which is what really functions of this deck. And as a Mewtwo v Union deck, we're going to play 4 copies of Research. We can really afford to go with this as we have a high count of recovery cards, and we really want to be as disruptive as possible through our deck to get set up as quickly as possible. Stadium count, 1 copy of Path to the Peak. Even though we are potentially weak to it, we don't exactly want to be reliant too much on the abilities. We still want to use them, but having that extra disruptive on the opponent is exactly why I love this sort of deck. And 2 copies of Azor Town. This is a way to get some rolls out, as well as other sort of attacking options like, setup options like Manaphy and Radiant Greninja. So I really like this as sort of a setup sort of a stadium. Then, like I mentioned before, we play 4 copies of Reversal Energy. This is why this whole deck works around, focusing around its 3 energies where it's evolved to attach to evolve Pokemon. They are 3 colored energies, as well as if you're behind in prizes. I really like this sort of card. I think it's absolutely amazing. This deck really shows and shines this sort of impact with that. As we play 4 of these, we can rely on a little bit of less energy. That's why there's only 6 psychic energies. That's why we play a less count of Gardevior EX. And this is pretty much the deck as a whole. I love this sort of deck. I think it's so creative, so unique. I definitely could see this be doing really, really well if you're starting your testing for NAIC or just want to know what's good in Paldea and Evolve for Gardevoir. This is definitely a really good list to try out. So what's his matchups like? Well, overall, I would say it's got pretty positive matchup against lots of options around there. Your Lugia decks, you have your wow, I'm blanking right now. Luxray to really help with that weakness on there. With your Lost Box and potentially your other sort of decks like there, we have Mewtwo, so we can play some damage counters around there, and you can get those big one-hit KOs with the cards like Gardevoir. With the Arceus decks and Miraidon, we have Gallade, which can really help with those big one-hit KOs on the Arceus and Miraidon sort of out there, and even potentially Regieleki VMAX, if they're still kind of playing that version of it, even though we are still seeing some very popularized of the Mareep, as well as the Fluffing version with, of course, the Magnezone. Xian Pao is definitely, I think this deck could really kind of go head-to-head with it. If it's playing the Palkia version, Xian Pao is a lot slower, so you can really afford to kind of get that win against it. Or if Xian Pao is playing the Excalibur, potentially could be a big of a 50-50 sort of matchup. So I definitely say it's got decent sort of matchup there, as well as Mew VMAX. If you just, as long as you have your Gardevoir both set up, you can get that big one-hit KO on the Mew VMAX, which is really, really powerful, as well as the Mewtwo v Union, which is really good to kind of spread some damage out there, potentially get a couple prizes with those Genesect on the bench. Some of your bad matchups, definitely Ting Lu is a really strong one because of its how ability reliant you really are. If they can just spread some damage on there, you can really lose your cards, like, for example, like your Curliers and potentially your Gallades for the help of the setup, but you still can have a Gardevoir EX be attacking with it, but they might potentially want to have a Path to the Peak out and play. And your Lost Zone Tina, I would say, could be very much a tricky sort of one. They're starting to evolve to play more Path to Peak on there, so you can do Star Abyss and then immediately get the big one-hit KOs on that. Sorry, I believe it is Lost Impact or Star Requiem, thinking of its first attack, and immediately get the big one-hit KO there if there's a Path to Peak in play. So I would say definitely this deck is in a really good situation with the format right now. It's really, really exciting to see it's evolving already, Gardevoir is. We've already been like, what, a month or so in Japan, and we're seeing this incredible archetype come out of fruition. And we've got to see how it evolves in when it's a Japanese and big national tournament, which is happening in just a few weeks' time. Will this Gardevoir deck be the right version for it? Or could we go back to the generic one? We've seen a lot of it with the Zacian, or potentially even the Drifloon with Champions Festival. That is it for today's deck profile video. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Let me know, is this your Gardevoir deck which you want to try out? Is there another version which you want to try? Think there could potentially be? Or do you think combat mechanics is definitely a way forward for Gardevoir? If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe down below and comment below exactly what deck you're excited to play in the Paldean era format. So excited to showcase some of my top decks in the format, which is going to be out next week. And my name is TCG, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. Bye for now.